We will call the meeting to order and let the roll call show that all council members are present. Lisa is present via phone. And we have one item of business, new business, and that is item C1. So, Mr. Raines?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. First, let me thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedule and convening this special meeting this evening. We've got some exciting news, and as we ask the mayor and council to consider a development agreement this evening, we will be asking the mayor and council to consider an ordinance approving a development agreement between the city of Casa Grande and Kohler Company, and authorizing the negotiations and execution of the development agreement and other legal documents related to the project by the mayor and city manager. And so I think everyone in our community knows that we've had a fair amount of activity, both industrial and residential, these last 18 months. And this is just some of the fruits of the labor from the work that's been going on between staff and the Pinal County team and the state of Arizona. Staff has been involved in negotiating a proposed development agreement between the city of Casa Grande and Kohler Company for the purpose of locating and constructing a manufacturing plant on approximately 200 acres within the city's industrial corridor on property located generally south of Casa Grande Maricopa Highway, west of Burris Road, and north of Clayton Road. This particular area is commonly known as the Pinal Tech Park. If I can just digress for a brief moment, I think the mayor and council is well aware of the fact that approximately a year and a half ago, we were entertaining a company by the name of Nacero that had done a fair amount of work on this plus 1,000 acres of property. It was outside of the city limits at that point in time. The city was in process of moving through an annexation process with a rezone to match our land use, our general land use category of industrial. As everyone is aware, Nacero elected to not to build in Casa Grande, but the Casa Grande Mayor Council and staff really looked forward to this process, to this project coming into the city limits. So we recommended and went through the annexation as well as rezoned this 1,000 acres into heavy industrial. So let me speak just a bit about the Kohler Company. I think many of you know it's a privately held company. It was founded in 1873 by John Michael Kohler. It's one of America's oldest privately held companies and is based in Kohler, Wisconsin. Kohler Company manufactures kitchens and bath products, engines and generators, cabinetry, tile, and lighting. The company also has a position in the hospitality business and is home to international resort and golf destinations in Kohler, Wisconsin, and St. Andrews, Scotland. So certainly a common name to many. They certainly have a presence around the nation and globally as well. If I can, just speak briefly about the economic impacts on this project. This project will continue, as you all will likely agree, to diversify the local economy by adding high-quality jobs in the manufacturing sector. All of the jobs created by the company would be net new jobs to the city, thereby growing the economy both locally and regionally. Kohler intends to construct a 1 million square foot facility within approximately 18 months here in Casa Grande, and ultimately adding 400 plus jobs within a 5-year time frame is their expectation. As with other economic development industrial manufacturing projects, staff always attempts to quantify the economic impact to the community, and we've asked the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, GPEC, to complete an impact analysis of the project for the next 10 years to demonstrate that economic value that the company will generate to the city, and what they have modeled through the capital investment, through the new jobs, and ultimately just the continuation of the payroll that would be paid to employees in Casa Grande and the use within our community. They anticipate that it would generate an estimated $11.9 million in direct tax revenues to the city and an additional $1.9 million in indirect tax revenues for a total of $13.8 million in tax revenues over a 10-year period. During that time, the company is expected to also directly create an estimated $166.8 million of personal income, plus an additional $100.4 million in indirect personal income, for a total of $267.2. So obviously, definitely an economic impact to the community, along with the name of the company. Tonight, we are asking the mayor and council to consider a development agreement. A copy of that proposed development agreement is attached for your review. This council action and my presentation tonight has been developed to summarize the commitments by both parties. As with other agreements previously entered into by the city, the commitments were established by utilizing a performance-based methodology with a heavy focus, and I'll get in a little more into detail, on capital infrastructure and public infrastructure. The methodology is utilized because it requires the developer to perform by making capital investments, generating local tax revenues through the construction of the site and through future property taxes, as well as hiring well-paid full-time employees in order to qualify for the reimbursements of impact fees collected for the public infrastructure, as well as trigger construction by the city for certain public infrastructure to support both the project and Pinal Tech Park alike. And I think that's the unique element of this particular project, is that we are, this is actually the first project that we are considering in this tech park. I really doubt that it will be our last. Most of the capital improvements that staff will be recommending to the mayor and council in the months to come will actually provide connection points to this area so that future economic development can consider this site and expand. I would like to add just one additional point that I think is very important. The city has not walked this path alone. Pinal County has been actively involved with the city along the way, and we have also been having a considerable amount of dialogue related to these capital infrastructure, particularly the transportation element. The county, as the council knows, and for our viewers at home and in the audience, there are still a number of areas in our western part of town that are located within the county. It is not in the city limits. And so a cooperative effort to bring the infrastructure to this site was certainly very welcomed by the staff and certainly very embraced by Pinal County staff. And while we have not finalized all of the details related to a potential intergovernmental agreement, we are working on one that the mayor and council will consider, I anticipate in the near future, probably the first of the calendar year, that ultimately outlines the commitment that the county would be making as part of this investment to this tech park and to this project. So if I can just spend a few minutes talking specifically about the incentives that are outlined in the development agreement. They are very similar to other development, to other agreements that we have, or other economic development that we've incentivized. And it starts with our city construction sales tax. I know the mayor and council is well aware of the fact that the city has a current tax rate of 4%, which is greater than what we levy against any other type of retail base or transaction privilege taxed element. And so staff is recommending that we credit or reimburse the developer for an aggregated amount of equal to 55%, which is in essence 2.2% against any development impact fees owed to the city by the developer. Again, you can see that we're putting an emphasis on public infrastructure that ultimately would have been potentially purchased by development impact fees. The credit is not reimbursable if it exceeds the amount of the development impact fees for the project. The credit may also be reduced dollar for dollar if the city constructs certain off-site infrastructure, not including the roadways that the developer is otherwise responsible for constructing. And the example that I'd like to utilize is that we've started to have some dialogue with the company related to the potential of the city making the improvements for a sewer line in that area, essentially a sewer line that would run from Burris Road east to Ethington. In those particular cases, there have been, if that particular component actually is activated by the parties, then ultimately there are provisions that essentially describe exactly how our construction sales tax would be utilized if the city were to, in fact, construct the the sewer infrastructure. Some of the intangible, what I would consider to be incentives that the city has worked very diligently with our many partners and/or within our staff that we've agreed to provide and recommend to the mayor and council for your consideration this evening is workforce development. The city will support and connect developer with Arizona at Work Pinal, who can assist the developer in connecting with the recruitment, screening, and interviewing of potential employees. We have found that this particular service that we are members of the board really has been an advantage for other industrial manufacturing companies that have come to the community, as well as those that have been in the community for some time. We've also agreed to orientation. Upon the request of the developer, the city would provide an orientation to developers' employees related to the city of Casa Grande, as it does for other similarly situated companies relocating to Casa Grande. Again, this is something more of a welcome. It's an introduction to Casa Grande. It's a welcome for the employees that might be moving to Casa Grande to take positions at this particular plant. Marketing, the city would provide marketing support to developer to promote and market the project at local trade shows and conferences, as well as economic development website, newsletter, and social media sites. Again, something that is very commonly utilized today is we really attempt to provide support to all of our industries in the community, all of our businesses when we go to these various trade shows. This just emphasizes that it would be part of the package. Representatives in implementing this agreement and to expedite decisions by the city related to the project, city agrees to designate a representative to act as a liaison between the city and developer. Again, I know the council is very familiar with the fact that this is, in my opinion, one of the tools that have worked effectively for our industry that is moving to town, that we ultimately are assigning specific personnel to work directly with the developer and their design and contract team along and concurrently with our team to ensure that permits are being processed, that we're staying on a construction timeline that the company is striving to achieve. And again, something that I believe has been very invaluable to some of our other industries in the community. The developer agrees to construct a manufacturing facility together with ancillary warehouse and office space comprising approximately 1 million square feet of vertical improvements, along with on-site parking for the facility. Commencement of that construction shall occur within 1 year after the effective date of the development agreement, which the mayor and council is aware that there will be 2 reads on this particular development agreement. The second would happen at our next council meeting next Monday night, and then there would be a 30-day cure period. So that would actually, we would align with some of the other elements that the developer is attempting to achieve before they start construction. The developer would also be required to donate any of the right-of-way for the city to complete the construction of the roadways adjacent to the project, which will occur on Clayton and Ethington roads in this particular case. If I can, just, are there any questions on those particular elements before I move to the construction of the capital improvements, primarily the transportation elements? No? Okay, so the next components of the development agreement deal with the commitment of that the city is making for the public infrastructure to be funded through the capital improvement program in conjunction with Pinal County. And again, I've mentioned a little bit about the Pinal County partnership, but I also want to stress to the mayor and council that staff had anticipated that there would be some a variety of transportation improvements that would be necessary to serve this particular region, this particular park. Mayor and council did approve funding allocation of $2 million in the fiscal year 22 just to essentially start, obviously with the arrival of the company and potential new companies that may be arriving, then additional funds would be allocated and mayor and council would be considering those separately. Let me talk specifically about the improvements that we are actually proposing for this project. First and foremost, the city, along with the county, is looking to do a double chip seal from Gila Bend Highway on both Burse and Ethington roads north to Clayton. We would also double chip seal the Clayton Road between Burris and Ethington. And one point of correction, when I say Clayton on Ethington, we actually are proposing to go up to the Union Pacific Rail crossing. But there are additional, and we would agree to essentially take on the 2-lane improvements that would commence 90 days after the developer has acquired fee title to the property and dedicates the right-of-way to the city to complete the construction. After completion of construction of the facility and hiring of employees, the city shall make further improvements to Ethington Road, and I would consider these to be more permanent improvements. They're the improvements that would typically be made by a developer. We would ask that the city would be responsible after completion of construction of the facility and hiring of employees. The city would make those improvements to Ethington adjacent to the property by widening the roadways to 4 lanes with a median. And the construction would commence within 90 days after developer had dedicated the necessary right-of-way to complete the construction and had notified the city that it employs 200 full-time employees for the project. This is on Ethington Road itself. On Clayton, the city agrees to pave or double chip seal, as I mentioned, the existing 2 lanes. This work would commence 90 days after the developer acquires fee title to the property and dedicates any necessary right-of-way to complete the construction. What I want to point out to the mayor and council, particularly on Clayton, is that while tonight we're essentially considering the adjacent ways for this particular project, understand that our plan is to pave double chip seal between Burris and Ethington the full distance there. Burris Road improvements, obviously Burris is not adjacent to the particular site that we are considering or that is being considered here, but there are some improvements that we anticipate could assist in the development of that region and certainly for this particular project. But the city will obtain a traffic impact analysis to determine whether additional roadway infrastructure is required on Burris because of future development in and around the property. Developer shall pay the cost of the first TIA, and the city will pay cost of any subsequent TIAs. If the TIA indicates that additional improvements or capacity is needed, the city will pave and/or double chip seal Burris Road from Clayton to Gila Bend Highway once all of the right-of-way has been dedicated. Again, I think that's something that will likely be accelerated, and we will achieve long before the required provisions of the development agreement. I mentioned to the mayor and council that many of these capital improvement projects were included in our fiscal year 22 capital improvement program. And I believe that most of our community recognizes that the current roadway in this area are currently dirt roads in both the city and county, and the improvements that are being recommended for this project will significantly enhance the area for existing traffic and future development. And Mr. Mayor and members of the council, before I provide my recommendation, I just want to say that as I said, as I started this presentation, obviously staff is extremely excited about the potential of bringing this company to our community. I know that there's still some work that needs to be done on the part of the developer in this case to really align all of the elements with the construction date. But the arrival of Kohler will certainly help to continue to diversify the manufacturing footprint of this community. Furthermore, the creation of new manufacturing makes it more likely that the region can attract new supply chain companies who serve Kohler or other manufacturers. And the siting of this manufacturing plant will create significant economic benefits to the city of Casa Grande and Pinal County alike. In addition, several public infrastructure improvements will be made adjacent to Pinal Tech Park, which continue to receive a substantial amount of interest from other industrial prospects, which can bring more jobs and development to the community of Casa Grande. And with that, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, staff would recommend that the mayor and council adopt an ordinance approving a development agreement between the city of Casa Grande and Kohler Company and authorize the mayor and city manager to execute the final development agreement and other legal documents related to the project. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd stand for any questions.
Larry, let me first say, first of all, I know that staff has worked on this intensely and for a long period of time. So I really want to thank all of you for all the due diligence. You know, Brett, your department, Larry, all of your departments. And I know I've been only involved in a few of these meetings, and I know you guys have had many, many, many more. And so I know this has been a kind of a slug to get kind of down the road and get everything put together. Kohler has been good to work with. I think they're going to be a really good corporate citizen here in Casa Grande. I know that they have some programs that they actually will work with the schools here in town to help develop potential internships and training programs, and they do it in other communities that they're in. They've shared some of that with me, and I will tell you that they are a quality company, and I personally am ecstatic to have them here in town. So looking forward to it, and I'll ask the council if you all have any questions. We've talked about this. This is not the first time we've had this conversation, so if people
Mayor,
yeah, go
Mayor,
ahead.
this is Lisa.
Go ahead, Lisa.
And actually, before we move forward on any of the discussion and voting, I personally am going to have to recuse myself from voting on this project and this development agreement. My law firm actually represents one of the property owners, so at this point, I will recuse myself from any discussion and vote.
All right, thank you, Lisa. So noted.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can add just one additional item, the mayor and council will see, should see an executive session item agendized for tonight. That item has been essentially added should the mayor and council need to convene into executive session to discuss any elements of the development agreement, but is not mandatory. We simply allowed it should mayor and council want to discuss any provisions in more detail, seek legal counsel.
Got it. Thanks, Larry. Mr. Powell?
I just, as I look at this, I'm really impressed with the binary support of both the project and the Pinell Tech Park alike, benefiting two different things that are both really important to our city. And to have them both happen under the same scenario, I think is wonderful. And I certainly, from everything I've read, welcome them to our community wholeheartedly.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Powell. Matt?
Also want to echo the mayor's thank you to all the departments. I won't hash that over, but thank you to everyone in the city. Also, Kirk McCarville and Land Advisor team did a lot of work. I know you guys have been working closely with them. Appreciate it. And it's neat because Abbott Labs, Frito-Lay, Lucid Motors, Hexel, and now Kohler in our town. I mean, that's amazing. We're fortunate, and it's because of the hard work of our team and also
And
the
our
great work
predecessors.
we do. Yep, and our predecessors. And there's many more, but that's some of the big ones that stick out. And it just goes with these roads. There's not a lot we can do to help development, but we do what we can legally. And this is a very good way to show it. And it's not only for Kohler, but as you said, for the Pinell Tech Park. Just like when we put the Burris sewer line in many years ago, probably this tech park wouldn't be happening if we hadn't have done that. And it was real discouraging after Nacero. You know, it was a great company to work with, but they had to go a different direction, and we're thinking, now what? And here we are, now what? It's a great thing. So welcome to Casa Grande Kohler, and we're very proud to have a company of that, that stature and that nature here in our town. So we appreciate it.
Donna?
Just a couple things, those of us grew up with Mr. Rogers when he said it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. It's a wonderful day in Casa Grande. Just a couple things I do want to mention.
You don't have your sweater on, though.
Yeah, there we go. A couple things I do want to mention. When I looked at this, I was really proud of the fact of what our staff have done, and we can't say that enough. And the reason is when I was looking over this, there was keywords that stood out in my mind. Talking about workforce development, talking about the incentives, talking about orientation for just the employees, because they're going to be citizens, whether they're new or they've been here a while, but just to make sure that we are good neighbors to them as well. And I think that Kohler has a reputation all of its own, and with our reputation, I fully believe this is going to be just a great partnership. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Donna. Anyone else? All right, again, just a big thank you to staff, and Kirk, also thank you to you. I should have mentioned you in the beginning. Did you want to say something? Please, go ahead. Because it's you and I have that prerogative.
Kurt McCarville, 442 West Courtson Road, Land Advisors Organization. Yes, So when Nacero left town, it was heartbreaking. I mean, that was a project we worked on for a very long time. It was a $3 billion deal that went poof at the last minute. But they did us a huge favor because they had spent probably $500,000 or more on due diligence investigations, which de-risk a property for development. And they gave us all of those documents because they loved their relationship with the city and they loved their relationship with the staff. Your staff is developing a very, very, very big reputation, and it's a good one. I get calls from Phoenix brokers all the time and investors, developers. I hear Casa Grande's a place to be, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. So, but I wanted to point out one other thing about this too. Discovery is the second user in phase one. Buckshot. Discovery is the first user in phase one. In phase one, we had to agree to leave in an escrow pool $5.2 million to bring in the offsite infrastructure of rail and water. So you're not in this alone. You've got $5.2 million of private money coming into this development. So it's a de facto public-private partnership. And I just wanted to make you aware of that as well.
No, that's a good point. Thank you, Kurt.
Both of these companies are fantastic. They're going to be great. And it's wonderful to work in this community after 41 years in the business and, having to go to St. Anthony's Catholic school, Man, those nuns were mean. Anyway, thank you guys.
Thank you, Kurt. All right, any other comments? All right, seeing none, then I'll call for an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 3312, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving a development agreement between the city of Casa Grande and Kohler Company, authorizing the use and/or expenditure of funds for economic development, authorizing the use and/or expenditure of any other funds necessary to satisfy the requirements of the development agreement, and authorizing the mayor and city manager to execute the development agreement and other documents reasonably necessary for the purpose of implementing the development agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I enthusiastically move to approve ordinance number 3312.
Mr. Mayor, I enthusiastically second that motion.
All right, thank you both. I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons abstaining. Councilmember Herman.
Yes, enthusiastically.
Councilmember Powell.
Absolutely.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, well, great. Good day in the city of Casa Grande today, and this is really will, I believe, open up that whole area in our new tech area. Thanks really to the hard work of Kurt McCarville and his company, but a lot of city staff work as well. So thanks to everybody. I don't think there's anything else on the agenda, is there, Larry? All right, then I will adjourn the special meeting. Thank you, everyone.